Welcome, coin enthusiasts. Today, we're taking a fascinating look at the Roosevelt Dime, a coin that may appear ordinary but can become surprisingly valuable in exceptional condition. We'll explore its history, rare full-band examples, mint errors, high-grade values, and what collectors should look for. Could you have a valuable dime hiding in your collection? Let's find out. The 1966 Roosevelt Dime is an important coin in modern U.S. numismatics, but it is worth separating genuine rarity from exaggerated internet claims. Although some examples can command significant premiums, an ordinary 1966 Roosevelt Dime is generally a common circulated coin rather than an automatically ultra-rare fortune. Its greatest appeal comes from exceptional condition, dramatic mint errors, and scarce high-grade examples. The coin belongs to the Roosevelt Dime series introduced in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, and its 1966 issue reflects an especially interesting period in American coinage. Collectors today examine these dimes for sharp strikes, attractive surfaces, full luster, unusual errors, and condition that places them far above the millions of ordinary pieces that entered circulation. For a collector searching rolls, old collections, estate lots, or inherited coin jars, the possibility of finding an unusually well-preserved 1966 dime provides much of the excitement. The market demand is strongest for authenticated pieces with exceptional grades or legitimate varieties, while ordinary worn examples usually remain close to face value. Historically, the 1966 Roosevelt Dime was produced during a turbulent period in U.S. coinage. The United States Mint was dealing with severe coin shortage, and rising demand for circulating money was creating pressure on the nation's coinage system. The 1965 Coinage Act had authorized major changes, including the elimination of silver from circulating dimes and quarters. Consequently, the 1966 Roosevelt Dime was struck in the new copper-nickel clad composition rather than the 90% silver composition used for Roosevelt dimes through 1964. The coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, and importantly, 1966 dimes do not carry a traditional mint mark. The absence of a mint mark is therefore normal for this issue and should not automatically be described as an error or rarity. This period also saw the temporary suspension of mint marks on circulating coins as part of efforts to discourage coin hoarding. The historical connection to the Roosevelt Dime series is particularly meaningful because Roosevelt's image had become permanently associated with the dime after his death in 1945, partly reflecting his leadership and the public's association of him with the March of Dimes campaign. The design of the 1966 Roosevelt Dime follows the classic work of sculptor John R. Sinek. On the obverse is a right-facing portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, surrounded by the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and the date 1966. The reverse features a torch at the center, flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch, with United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and one dime completing the design. The coin measures approximately 17.9 millimeters in diameter, weighs about 2.27 grams, and consists of a copper core bonded to outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. This composition gives the coin its familiar silvery appearance, while making it fundamentally different from the silver Roosevelt dimes of earlier years. In high-grade examples, collectors look closely at Roosevelt's cheek, hair, jawline, lettering, torch bands, and the fields for signs of contact marks, abrasions, or weak striking. A sharply preserved 1966 dime with brilliant original surfaces can be considerably more interesting to collectors than a typical circulated specimen. The question of rarity is where the 1966 Roosevelt Dime becomes particularly important. The issue itself was produced in large numbers, so date rarity alone does not make a normal 1966 dime valuable. In fact, millions of examples survived, and circulated pieces can still be encountered. What becomes scarce is a coin that combines a correct date with an exceptional grade, superb surfaces, strong strike, attractive luster, or a genuine mint-made error. Collectors should also remember that the lack of a mint mark is completely normal on a 1966 Philadelphia issue. More attention should be given to unusual characteristics, such as major off-center strikes, broad strikes, clips, double dies when authenticated, wrong planchet errors, or other dramatic mint errors. Minor die deterioration, machine doubling, scratches, environmental damage, and post-mint damage are often mistaken for valuable errors. This distinction is crucial because a dramatic-looking coin is not necessarily a rare mint error, and professional authentication can make the difference between an interesting curiosity and a genuinely collectible rarity. Condition is one of the biggest factors affecting the value of a 1966 Roosevelt dime, a heavily circulated example with noticeable wear, scratches, discoloration, or damaged surfaces will generally have little premium beyond its face value. As the grade rises into about uncirculated AU and mint state MS territory, however, collectors become increasingly selective. In mint state grades, the absence of circulation was only the beginning. Contact marks, strike quality, luster, toning, and overall eye appeal become increasingly important. At very high grades, such as MS 67 and above, even tiny marks can separate one coin from another and dramatically influence market price. This is why a common date coin can occasionally become much more valuable when it reaches an exceptionally high certified grade. Collectors pursuing the finest known or finest certified examples may compete strongly for coins that ordinary collectors would overlook, creating a substantial difference between the value of a common circulated 1966 dime and a truly exceptional certified specimen. In terms of market value, the 1984 D. Roosevelt Dime is an interesting modern United States coin, but it is important to distinguish genuine rarity from exaggerated claims often found online. The 1984 D was struck at the Denver Mint with a reported mintage of 704,803,976 pieces, making the date itself very common rather than inherently ultra-rare. Its real collecting potential comes from exceptional preservation, full-band examples, major mint errors, and coins that reach unusually high certified grades. For collectors, this dime is particularly fascinating because many examples were heavily circulated, while truly pristine pieces with sharp strikes and clean surfaces are much harder to locate. The strongest market demand is therefore concentrated at the upper end of the grading scale. A normal circulated 1984 D-dime is generally a modest value coin, but an exceptionally preserved, certified specimen can command a meaningful premium. This difference between an ordinary example and a top-quality example is what makes the 1984 D. Roosevelt Dime worth examining carefully. The 1984 D-dime belongs to the continuing Roosevelt Dime series, which began in 1946 following the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The series was designed by John R. Sinek, and by 1984 the dime had been struck for nearly 4 decades. The 1984 issue was part of America's modern clad coin era, following the removal of silver from circulating dimes after 1964. The Denver Mint's D designation identifies the production facility, and unlike the 1966 issue, the 1984 D legitimately carries a mint mark. The coin was produced during a period when the United States was experiencing substantial everyday demand for small denomination currency. It was also issued during the broader economic and cultural atmosphere of the early 1980s, when American coinage remained overwhelmingly focused on practical circulation rather than precious metal content. Although the coin does not commemorate a special anniversary or bicentennial event, its historical importance comes from representing the established Roosevelt dime design during the mature clad era. The physical specifications of the 1984 D. Roosevelt dime are characteristic of the post-1965 clad composition. The coin has a diameter of approximately 17.90 millimeters, weighs about 2.27 grams, and has a reeded edge. Its composition is 75% copper and 25% nickel over a pure copper center, giving the coin its familiar silver-colored exterior, while distinguishing it from the earlier 90% silver Roosevelt dimes. The obverse displays Roosevelt's portrait facing left, with Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 1984, along with the D mint mark. The reverse presents a symbolic torch of liberty between an olive branch and an oak branch, accompanied by United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 dime. In a superb specimen, collectors look for bright original luster, minimal contact marks, strong lettering, and especially well-defined details on the reverse torch. The major reason the 1984 D can become genuinely valuable is condition rarity, rather than low production with more than 704 million pieces struck. The issue is not scarce in an absolute sense. However, modern circulation was hard on small copper-nickel coins, and finding examples with exceptional surfaces, strong strikes, and outstanding eye appeal can be considerably more difficult. Collectors of Roosevelt dimes frequently pay special attention to the full band's FB designation. This designation rewards coins in which the horizontal bands across the torch on the reverse are completely and distinctly separated, providing evidence of a particularly sharp strike. PCGS currently lists separate market levels for regular 1984, D mint state coins in 1984, D full bands pieces, with the FB designation carrying substantial premiums in higher grades. Thus, a worn 1984, D found in pocket change, and a superb MS-67 FB example may technically be the same date and mint, but they occupy completely different levels of a numismatic market. The value progression demonstrates why grading matters so much. Current PCGS guide data lists ordinary 1984 D mint state examples at approximately $4 to $45 across the lower to upper MS range shown, while full band examples rise from roughly $5 into the hundreds of dollars and beyond at the highest grades. As a concrete market example, a PCGS certified MS-64 1984 D Roosevelt Dime sold for $6 in the Great Collections auction, illustrating how ordinary certified mint state pieces can remain relatively affordable. These figures show that a valuable 1984 D does not necessarily mean a four-figure coin. Often, the premium begins with exceptional grade and full bands characteristics. At the extreme end of the market, the numbers become much more interesting. The unusually high prices attached to particular certified coins demonstrate how auction competition, certification, pedigree eye appeal, and market conditions can produce results far above ordinary price guide levels. Importantly, these records should not be interpreted to mean that every 1984 D-dime is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. The normal market remains much lower, and extraordinary auction results generally represent unusual circumstances or particularly desirable certified examples. Another potentially valuable category involves genuine mint errors and unusual divergence.